Welcome back, fight fans. We're back for another one. Amazing, amazing card as always. Well, not as always, but amazing pay-per-view as always in London. So we're going to talk about that, of course. And then we're going to be talking about this week's card, UFC San Antonio, which is another pretty solid looking card. So, of course, we will jump right into UFC 286, UFC London, whatever you want to call it. And that opened up with the ladies, Veronica Hardy, Juliana Miller. And this is exactly why I said I wasn't sure about putting Miller into the parlay because the numbers looked great. On paper, it looked decent. But as soon as I was seeing the interview on the MMA Hour where they were talking to Dan Hardy, Veronica Hardy, formerly Veronica Macedo, of course. um, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm a little bit worried about this, especially when you've got, okay, Miller's got her first fight in the UFC, like, first real fight in the UFC, of course, because her debut was technically the finale for The Ultimate Fighter, so technically not against a full UFC opponent. This being the first one against a first, real UFC opponent. You never know how that's going to go. And especially when on the other side, she's been gone for 2 or 3 years, clearly been working quite a bit. That is exactly why I was saying probably don't put that in the parlays. And that's exactly what we saw. In fact, maybe I should have probably just mentioned, hey, maybe put some money on the underdog as well. That might have been, well, that would have been a great idea in this case because you would have won. But yeah, so Hardy, Miller. Uh, really, it was kind of one of those cases where, excuse me, it was one of those cases where you see, okay, you've got a grappler who doesn't really want to partake in the striking against this person. By the way, I think that they were kind of being a little bit harsh on the broadcast, I will say, to Miller because they were just saying, "Oh, she's not doing well on the feet. Oh, she's just and she's getting taken down and blah blah blah." I don't think that's what was happening at all, actually. I mean, if you really were paying attention and watching it, the only thing that was happening is Miller knew that she wasn't going to be winning the fight on the feet, so she was pulling guard to do literally anything she could to get the fight to the ground. And that didn't matter if she was on the bottom or the top. That wasn't the strategy. The strategy was to get the fight to the ground no matter what. And she did that. She did that. So for me, I actually thought that was the game. It is the game. That was the game plan, and she did it pretty well. It was just she didn't end up getting the finish out of it, and that's really all you can say about that. And she was close. She was close a couple of times. She did, a little bit of damage here and there with the ground and pound. Just didn't get it. She just didn't get the submission. She was working hard. She was pretty close a couple of times, but didn't end up getting it. And that's really it. I mean, I honestly don't even have a problem with that. I don't know why. I mean, I guess because maybe the commentators didn't really fully understand that was the plan going in there. I don't really know, but I think they were a little bit harsh on that because they were basically just saying, "Oh, she's too inexperienced. She doesn't, she should be doing this. She should be going back on her feet. She should be doing all." And it's like, no, that's just not the strategy. She knows she's not going to win on the feet. She's got to get the fight to the ground. That's the whole point, and she did that. So I don't have a problem with that at all. I still like Miller. I still think she's got a future. Just clearly, definitely still needs to be a little more well rounded if she's going to be fighting people like full UFC prospects here. Because yes, she 100% has the ground game. I think that's pretty obvious. She just needs to get the rest of it tying in together. That's it. That's it. But yeah, sucks. 30-27, pretty clear. No other way to score that for Veronica Hardy. Second fight, Jai Herbert, Ludovic Klein. A weird one for sure. Pretty crazy start early from both guys. Lots of strikes being thrown. After a kick, Herbert was thrown down to the ground. Klein started to work. Herbert, some pretty solid moments with submission attempts, up kicks. Actually, one of the better up kicks I've seen landed. Almost actually got a knockout from an up kick there, and that actually, interestingly enough, he actually let Herbert stand back up. Klein started to come alive in the clinch, then got hit with some pretty heavy shots from Herbert. I figured it was a pretty clear round for Herbert in that one. Just a lot of damage in that one. Second round, Klein started to walk him down right away. Looked pretty good. Herbert then pushed him into the fence, then got clipped hard. Started to try and grapple because of that, of course. Lots of combos from both guys. Herbert started to come back, reopened up the cut that was opened up earlier. Pretty close, but because of that output and because of the cut, I was saying they probably gave it to Herbert because of that. But it was really, really close. But optics, and maybe that's even what happened to Fiziev later in the card. Is it's the optics of the cut, the blood. It doesn't look good. Third round, heavy onslaught from Klein early this time. Obviously knew he needed to get something going. He needed to win the round for sure. And he landed a second low blow in the round. It was pretty bad. The ref did take a point away. Bisping was saying it looked like it was more to the hip than the groin, and I do agree. That one wasn't really to the groin. But I agree with what Bisping was. I think this is what Bisping was saying, because all I wrote down was I agree with Bisping a bit. Looked like it was more to the hip and the groin. But the point I was trying to make, of I agree with him a little bit, is that I kind of think, yeah, you kind of got to take a point away. I mean, it's like the judges don't know that, the ref doesn't know that it didn't land exactly on the cup. It was like a few inches to the left on the hip bone. It's still close enough that it's like, okay, there you clearly weren't looking to be like, I'm gonna kick him in the hip. Like, you know, lift it up a little bit. It's still the same thing where it's like, something needs to happen, because who knows, either one of them moves a couple inches either way, and you would have ended up with a pretty bad groin kick. So it's like, after, and he did land the groin kick just before that, a real one. So it's like, okay, let's stop that. In which case, taking a point away, I don't really have a problem with it in that case. Herbert then turned to some grappling, found himself on top. Eventually, Klein reversed him, but he got it back and seemed to win the round convincingly. To me, that seemed like a 29-27 or a 28-28, depending on really how you saw the second round. I would say that's really what it came down to, which is what I was saying before. And that's exactly what the judges had. One of them had it 29-27, so that would have been giving the second round to Klein, and then 28-28 in a majority draw. It happens. It happens. Especially if you're scoring things properly, you should really be seeing more 10-10 rounds, which we would see a lot more draws, which is how it should be. But majority draw in this case, I even said 29-27 or 28-28 makes sense. We saw both of them. It just happens. Excuse me. Then after that, Joanne Wood, Luana Carolina. Definitely worried about that when the results were being read there. Actually, I wasn't really worried now that I think about it, because I was scoring it for Wood pretty convincingly. I mean, if you had a betting ticket, though, if you had a bet slip, which we, of course, we were doing, picking Wood for actually quite a few of the parlays that I had. um, yeah, fairly significant favorite going into it. Reasonably so. I mean, she's been fighting all these top people. Luana Carolina not really doing a whole lot. Of course, Joanne Wood being older, evens it out a little bit. But still seemed like the pretty clear choice. Uh, and Wood was taking it to her right away, ended up getting pushed into the fence. Wood was a little busted up in the clinch, but started to really get some good work in. Carolina started to struggling to keep up at that point, even in the first round. Carolina started to get kind of picked apart. The numbers were getting higher and higher for Wood. It was close, but like I said, the numbers. It's all about the numbers in this case. I would say Wood pretty clearly won that first round because of that. Wood walked forward right away. Carolina not backing her down, but not backing down though. I should say this is the second round. Got into the clinch again. Both landed quite a bit. Then once again, Wood seemed to separate herself a bit. Landed the cleaner shots. Another pretty close one. But I gave the round to Wood again. But again, pretty close. I mean, I'm not saying, these are outrageously one-sided rounds, but I mean, I did have Wood up 2-0 at that point, and I think that's kind of how you should have scored it, unless you're going to give out 10-10s. Third round. Wild combos from both. Obviously, they know it's a fairly close fight. Could be going either way at this point. Carolina started to land more now, but Wood then, of course, use the clinch and the fence again. And Carolina's face was actually pretty busted up. Lots of elbows landed by Wood. Insane finish by both of them as at the end of the fight. And then just as the buzzer rang, Carolina dropped to her knees, and that may have actually stolen the round for Wood, but it was so close. So I actually kind of had it 30-27, could have probably seen a 29-28. And that is almost exactly what we saw from the judges. It was a 30-27, 29-28 for Wood, and then one of them had it 29-28 for Carolina. And I mean, I think it's pretty ridiculous to have it the other way. I think it's just kind of absurd to give it to Carolina, but I mean, the right person won. What can you say? 30-27, okay. 29-28, okay. 29-28 the other way? I don't think so. And you know what? There were a lot of weird cards on this card. I gotta say, there were some questionable. I don't have a problem. I should say that though. I don't have a problem with any of the results, which is good, because that's really when it starts to get a problem. Is when you see these weird scorecards, and then it also affects the results. But in this card, I should say, I didn't really see any of the actual results being affected, but the scorecards all across the card were kind of like, there's some rounds here and there. I don't know. That's questionable at best. But after that one, that was the first prelim that we had talked about last time. Jake Hadley, Malcolm Gordon. Yeah, felt like my Canadian guy was going to get absolutely annihilated. And he was. That was sad, of course. Canadians just getting trashed all over the place here. Sad to see, but not much of a surprise there. I mean, he even missed weight by a few pounds there for, I think, a medical reason. I forget what it was. So already not looking good even on the Wednesday, or what day was that they, oh yeah, Fridays, of course, that they weigh in. Even not looking good there. And yeah, kicks from both sides early. Hadley started to walk him down, land a lot of huge shots, dropped him with a body shot, and that was pretty much it. And I think that actually ended up being my KO of the night. Let me see here. It was, of course, body shot KO. Gotta love the body shot TKOs. Incredible performance by Jake Hadley there. And then he calls out Mohamed Mokayev. Love that. Love that call out. I actually think that's a fantastic call out. I don't know if the UFC is going to let it happen. They're kind of both making their way up. Obviously, of course, Mokaev is also ranked too, so that kind of throws a wrench into it too. Why would they give Mokaev a matchup below again after this? I don't know. I don't think they're going to make it happen right away, but someday, I would very much like to see that happen. Jake Hadley and Mohamed Mokaev. That'd be incredible. After that, it was Christian Leroy Duncan, Dushko Todorovic, and wow, what a disappointing way to make your debut. I mean, Duncan was looking like he was going to be so good in this fight. I watched the tape. He looked so exciting in Cage Warriors. Looked amazing. I thought, oh man, this is going to be so good. He's going to get a great finish for in his UFC debut. It's going to be great. Make him put him in the parlays, put him as a, uh, do the prop bet for the finish, of course. And then, I mean, well, technically, he actually does cash in on all those. I shouldn't be too disappointed. But as a fan of the sport, yeah, that's not how you want to see it happen. I mean, literally nothing from either side happens really, and as soon as they kind of start even hinting at some kind of action, Dushko then twists the wrong way, knee explodes, TKO due to an injury. Ah, you know, hate to see it. Hate to see those like that. Actually, now that I'm really looking back at it, it's a pretty weird start to the night. I mean, massive favorite Miller, of course, even though I had Hardy kind of probably winning it. Huge upset. Then fight number 2, majority draw, split decision in the third fight, TKO. Well, actually, the Jake Hadley Gordon one. Okay, that's fair. Then we see a TKO doing it due to an injury. Then fight number 6, Lerone Murphy, Gabriel Santos. We see another split decision. I mean, weird fights all around, really. Now that I'm looking back on it, I didn't really realize it at the time, but now that I'm looking back on it, some pretty weird fights. But let's get into that Murphy Santos fight. I was pretty excited about this one. I will say I thought Murphy was going to kind of run away with it a little bit more than he did. I mean, clearly, again, split decision. Clearly, it was pretty close. But Gabriel Santos really looking good. Heavy start from both guys right away. Murphy throwing some heavy shots. Santos launching with a takedown right away. Murphy lands a bomb from on top, but got stuck in a triangle. So already lots of action all the way around. Did get out of it, went back to the striking. Wild exchanges from both guys. Crowd finally starting to come alive. I will say, crowd in London a little bit lower than normal. I'm not saying they were bad. It's still a London crowd. They're still good, but a lot quieter throughout the entire card compared to really both of the last two. Little disappointed with that. I mean, what can you do? Has to do with the fights too. Listen, if Christian Leroy Duncan would have come in there and smoked Dushko, I think we would have been seeing a lot more hyped crowd. But, as I said, weird results up until that point. So probably the crowd was getting a little put out by that. But yeah, second round, though, crowd really starting to get into it, making Santos turn to some grappling. Murphy then started to grapple too. Let him back up again, though. Started to get some slick combos in there as Santos was kind of slowing down. Massive leg kicks that swept out the leg of Murphy. Then Santos went straight into a takedown on the back of Murphy. I mean, seriously, just the action was just going back and forth. I probably gave the second round to Santos there. And I should say the first round too, Santos kind of starting to land more at the end of the round there too. So I might have actually had Santos kind of winning at that point. It was so close though. It was so close. I mean, it was really one of the solid fights of the night for sure. Third round, definitely was a lot more Murphy for sure. lots more damage from Murphy there. So I had it 29-28 for Santos, but I mean, I could have seen it either way. And again, that's what we saw. Split decision, split decision. 29-28, 29-28, and then 28-29, of course, going the opposite direction for Murphy. I gotta say, I was a little surprised by that. But it was pretty close. I mean, again, I don't really think there were any robberies on the card. I don't think it was anything crazy. Just, just really close fights. And that's what happens when the judging criteria is, you know, and when the judges maybe aren't necessarily, fully educated on what they're watching either. You run into some problems, of course. Then we had the Mokaev fight, and that's where it got real interesting, especially, of course, with a minute left in the fight. I mean, it was really just Mokaev kind of dominating up until that point. I mean, the first round, pretty obviously, Mokaev. Second round, definitely a lot closer. Filio landing well. Mokaev was dodging a lot of it, though. But really not throwing any kind of offense out at all. That was kind of weird. Took him down easily, started to smother him, then probably won the round back. Pretty tight. Could have been one of these 10-10 rounds, but because of the late kind of onslaught from Mokaev, again, probably won that round. And then third round, yeah, that's where it got dicey. I mean, if you had him in a lot of parlays, and this is why you don't want to put somebody like this in a parlay that's like that, because it's like he was at minus 900, but I mean, he's going against somebody who's undefeated, who's also, I think he was undefeated, but extremely talented. That was made pretty obvious right away. So it's like, I don't like, you don't want those kind of matchups in your parlay because it doesn't really add a whole lot of value. And then you could end up with something like this where it's like, oh, he's gonna lose this now. Didn't think he was gonna lose until, of course, yeah, the knee bar. We've all seen the knee bar. That's got to be one of. I mean, I can really only think of one other time where I've ever thought, oh my God, I cannot believe he's not tapping to this. He is going to have a limb broken in half. That's what I was thinking for that when he was in that submission. And the only other time I've ever thought of that, and I still remember it because it's so crazy when you see it happen. Tony Ferguson, and I think it was against Oliveira. But yeah, Tony Ferguson and I think it was the armbar. Yeah, the armbar. And he was getting it literally just bent the complete opposite direction for like 20, 30 seconds straight, just gritting it out. I mean, craziest non-tap I've ever seen. This is a very close second, though, I gotta say. I mean, I still think the Tony Ferguson one is as insane as it gets, but this one was pretty insane as well. It's just insane to watch. It's not even, I don't even know what else to say. It's just crazy. I don't even know how you get the toughness to do that. The mental fortitude to do that is absolutely insane. But yeah, he was not about to lose that fight. That's for sure. And I will definitely never question the toughness of Mokaev. That is for sure. But yeah, and the craziest part of that is he didn't just ride it out to a decision and be like, okay, I won the first two rounds. That's it. I won. Let's just hold him down here now that I'm out of the knee bar, and then that's it. He didn't do that at all. He thought, no, okay, like I don't know if I can hold him down here, and if I go up to the feet, I'm gonna be screwed. So just fights through it, drags Filio down, and somehow gets a submission out of it. I mean, unbelievable. Truly one of the craziest things I have ever seen. Yeah. So that was my submission of the night. I mean, how do you beat that? That's absolute fucking insanity. just absolute insanity how you can do that and get through it. I just couldn't believe it when I was watching it. And yeah, I mean, I listen, I don't know if he's going to be a future champ. He keeps saying that he wants to be the youngest champ. I don't know. I mean, flyweight's pretty tough. Pantoja, I think, is going to be the next champ, and I don't think he's going to be dropping that belt anytime soon. I truly think Pantoja is just unfucking believable. I really do. So I think that's the next champ, and I don't even think it's going to be really all that close. And I don't think he's going to be giving up the belt anytime soon after that. I really don't. I think it's Pantoja for the Pantoja dynasty is going to start whenever that fight is. I think they're maybe thinking July. But yeah, holy shit. So, and I don't think Mokayev's anywhere close to beating Pantoja at any point. So, or me, I won't say at any point, but not anytime within the next couple of years. I really don't think that's happening at all. So I don't think he's going to be the next champ. I don't think he's going to be the youngest champ. But do I think he's going to be champ at some point? Yeah, I would say so. Because I think he's actually kind of the next version of Pantoja almost. Although actually, maybe I would say he's more like he's a lot more like Sterling, I would say, than which is, bantamweight, of course, but he's a lot more like Sterling than somebody like Pantoja, because Pantoja is more like Figueiredo, where it's like, I'm going to absolutely destroy you. That's Pantoja. And I love to see it. I love Pantoja. And I don't know why he doesn't get talked about more. He's insanely good. I think as soon as he gets the belt, though, people are really going to start being like jumping on the bandwagon, being like, oh, wow, he's really good. It's like, yeah, he's been this good for a while. He's just never been given the chance because we've been seeing Figgy and Moreno for the past 3 fucking years. But it's like Pantoja probably could have actually beaten both of them at that point. I really do think. So it's like, yeah. Anyway, enough ranting about Pantoja. I don't even know how he came up with this. But anyway, next up, Yanal Ashmuz Sam Patterson. I gotta say, this one, shocking. Truly, I did not see this one coming at all. And even as I was watching it, I was like, oh my god, wow, okay. Yeah, I did not see it coming. Truly shocked. I don't even have any words other than that because it's like, even going into it, I was like, okay, Sam Patterson's a pretty clear choice. I mean, even on paper, it's like he's way bigger. Like it was a 10-inch reach advantage, way bigger. Plus, he's fairly well rounded, and he's just smoking these other guys. Like it's not even really close in his other fights. And Ashmuz kind of didn't really look great in his last fight because I watched it. I wasn't really all that impressed. So it was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Sam Patterson is going to run away with this. That is not what happened at all. Patterson, very clearly the much, much bigger guy, as I mentioned. I mean, when I was watching the MMA, he said it looked like, Ariel was saying it looked like a welterweight fighting a featherweight. I mean, kind of did, not going to lie. I mean, at the very least, it looked like, yeah, it really did look like they were not in the same weight class at all. I mean, it really was not, it was jarring. That's kind of how you got to describe it. It's like, what the fuck is happening here? But didn't matter. Didn't matter. Yanal Ashmuz goes in there, drops him, lands these bombs. Ref maybe a little bit late on the stoppage. I didn't think it was too late. I mean, I didn't think it was a late stoppage until I saw Sam Patterson get up and start fighting spirits, just trying to fight a ghost, then fight his coach, fight the ref. I mean, fuck me. Like that, when you see that, that's scary. That is actually like, oh, you got to get him to the hospital like now. Like that's some scary, scary stuff. That is not, when you see that, it's like, especially if you were a fighter, you'd be thinking, do I really want to do this? because yeah, that is not, you do not want to end up in that kind of position. I mean, that's scary. Scary. But yeah, Yanala Schmooze though, holy shit. I mean, he is, I would say, pretty real guy after watching that. Definitely not doubting him anymore. That was crazy. So yeah, fight number 9. After that, the other Chris Duncan, the Scotsman this time. I believe he's Scottish in this case. I'm pretty sure he was. Chris Duncan and Omar Morales. Definitely did not think this one was going to be as close as it was either. I mean, another split decision. Holy shit. These split decisions taking over the cards. But I mean, what a fucking absolutely just laughable judges card at the end. I mean, we'll get into it when we get there, but it's just like, oh my god, what are we doing here? And this is what I'm saying. It's like the whole card. I don't really think any of the results were affected by that. I actually either fully agree with all of the results, or it's like, okay, I didn't score it the same way, but I can see how you would score it that way. That's how I felt about every single fight that was like that. But I mean, we had a majority draw, majority decision, multiple split decisions. I mean, what a fucking nightmare when it comes to that. I mean, you never want to see even one split decision, let alone, I don't even know how many we have. I'll count after this because now I'm genuinely curious, because really, as it was happening, I wasn't even really noticing it. Cause I guess because I thought, oh, well, the results are fine. But now that I'm seriously, as I'm scrolling through this, it's like, man, this was a bizarre card. It really, really was. So now I'm kind of starting to see why the crowd was so dead, really. Especially up until this point. But anyway, Chris Duncan, Omar Morales. Let's get into it. Pretty slow start. Duncan walking forward, Morales countering well. Duncan landed the first big shot. Omar was walking back, really just kind of cautious, trying not to get hit bad. But then Morales finally landed, dropped Duncan pretty bad. Had him struggling to stand back up, but then Duncan got it back, then dropped Morales. So, I mean, one knockdown to one, pretty close. 10-10 round for me. When you see that, I mean, it's pretty dead even. They did the exact same everything, but I wouldn't have been surprised if Morales took it because his moment seems slightly bigger. So, I mean, on my cards, 10-10. But if I had to pick one, I probably would have gone with Morales just because it seemed like his knockdown was worse. I don't know. See, you're splitting hairs at this point. That's what I'm saying. Second round. Duncan switched it up, this time shooting for a takedown, pinning him into the fence. After a couple minutes, Morales got back up, started to be the cleaner, showier guy, even taunting Duncan at some points. That led to some more grappling. Duncan along the fence didn't get the takedown, but it was sending a message and probably won him the second round because it's kind of the only real thing that was standing out. So again, really could have been 2020. But I did have it tied either way because if I was forced to pick a winner in the first two, it would have been 1-1. But if not, it would have been 2020. So I guess it really would have been tied either way on my cards. Third round. So it really comes down to this, for me at least anyway. Duncan pressuring once again, got dropped by a nasty leg kick. Brief takedown, didn't last too long, but had him pinned along the fence and kept him there for the majority of the round. So, I mean, with that lasting pretty much the entire round, I mean, I don't really know how you could score that any other than Duncan. But that's not what we saw in the cards. I mean, I guess because of the nasty leg kick, just what I mean, but it's one leg kick and it's at the start of the round. So it's like I don't really see how that determines the whole round when it's at the start of the round and he didn't do anything after that. In fact, Duncan had complete control of the rest of the round. So I just don't really see how you could score it other than at least a 29-28 for Duncan. I don't get it. So that's how I had it. If I had to pick, it would have been 29-28 for Duncan. And that's what two of them had. That's what two of the judges had. The other one, 30-27. 30-27 for Morales. I mean, what the actual fuck was that judge watching? I mean, it's just insane. Like, again, week after week, we have at least a couple of judges cards where it's like, I don't even know what you possibly could have been watching, because that makes absolutely no sense. No sense. 30-27? Come on now. 29-28. I mean, you could argue a 29-28 for Morales. I mean, I wouldn't, if he would have said that, I would have been like, okay, I guess that's fair. But 30-27 of what, like, that's, yeah, no, that's absurd. And then we had it was a featured prelim, the second prelim that we had talked about last time, Jack Shore and Makwan Amirkhani. Figured this was not really going to be all that close. Jack Shore, fairly big favorite. I put him in almost all my parlays. Yeah, there was no way he was going to lose this fight. And I even predicted a finish for Shore on this one. Both of them started off slow. Macwine landed a decent strike, then pushed into the fence by Shore. And it was 50-50 along the fence. And I was actually getting a little bit worried when I saw that, because it's like, oh shit. It's actually like, it's pretty dead even actually in the grappling, which is like that's a problem when you when Shore that's his usual strategy is grappling. So 50-50. I mean, I was like, oh, uh-oh. And Makwan was looking great on the feet. Weirdly though, yeah, he actually started to go for a takedown against Shore and was actually completely in control, easily winning the round. Makwan was at that point. So yeah, I was actually getting a little bit worried at that point. Still figured he was probably going to bring it back in the second and third round, but definitely a little bit worried about it. Shore tried to get some subs going from the bottom, didn't really work well. Got hit with some elbows. Pretty obvious round for Makwan. And by the way, if you did watch the MMA Hour on Monday, he actually did talk about that. And he said, well, I already lost the round by getting controlled and taken down like that. So figured just, you already lost the round. So let's just recover and go for the second round. And that makes sense. When you look back at it and think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, no, I see. I 100% see what he was doing there. So yeah, second round, Shore knew he was down, which then we found out for sure that he knew he was down, but kind of figured even just by looking at it. Got the takedown. Makwan got up quick though, started to get ripped apart by combos though, hit hard by head kicks, which is exactly what the corner was yelling at Jack Shore in between rounds, I should say, during the break. So Shore was definitely listening, and it was paying off because they really started to land. And Makwan started to really slow down at that point. Shore started to land some heavy shots on the feet, picked him apart, made him struggle. And then Shore started to grapple, started to outwork him there too. Weird strategy, though, I gotta say. If I was Shore, I probably would have been on the feet because he was winning on the feet very clearly. And doing some pretty good work there. Pretty easily, probably could have gotten a finish on the feet too, but decided to go for the grappling instead. As I said, weird strategy, because that's really Makwan's only chance at that point. But it worked out because he outpositioned him, locked in a beautiful sub, made him tap, and got the first win at featherweight. Had to think about that. So yeah, Jack Shore very much looking like he belongs at 145. Then finally, we reached the main card. 11th fight. This is a long card. And I'm really trying my best to move through this as fast as I can. But, got to throw some thoughts in there as well, some reactions and such, especially with these judging. I mean, but anyway, prediction Vittori decision. And that really, I put almost all of my points on that on what's it called? Verdict MMA, because I was like that. Yeah, Vittori decision is like nobody's gonna get a finish here because Vittori's got like he's just made out of concrete. You can't finish this guy. And Vittori just way better overall. He's just more well rounded. So I mean, to me, that was a slam dunk pick, Vittori decision, and that's exactly what we saw. I will say though, when I was watching it, did not seem as clear cut as the scorecards by the end. I was definitely a little more worried. Um, yeah, I was definitely worried when I was watching it, to be honest. Pretty slow start for both guys. Delitse landing first, wobbling Vittori into the fence. As the round went on, though, Vittori started to put it together, some slick combos, getting in and out of range. This continued throughout really the whole rest of the round until the last minute, where Delitse then landed a couple of heavy ones, stumbled him into the fence, and may have actually edged the round because of that. I mean, it was pretty close. Really just landed harder. And, not looking technical on the feet compared to Vittori, because I mean Vittori's super technical. Roman is more of a violence kind of guy. Like, let's get in close and swing hooks at him. That's kind of his more so his strategy. Um, but yeah, might have edged that round. I thought it was pretty close for sure. Could have been 10-10 again. We talk about this quite a bit. Second round, a lot less from Delitse. That allowed Vittori to work a lot more this round. Most of the round was completely even though. Vittori landing kicks, Delitse swinging combos. Delitse definitely wasn't throwing as much this round. So I mean, really, even just because of all the output, I think that was a pretty clear round for Vittori. So could have had it tied. Could have had Vittori up one, if you had it the first round tied. Third round, Vittori. I mean, the cardio, we know about his cardio. Just starting to get ahead on the cards with that pace. So, and that's exactly why I picked him, because we know he doesn't slow down after 3 rounds. That's not what he just goes 100% all the time. Not like Marab. That's a whole other level, but still very similar in that way, I would say. Well, not very similar, but slightly similar in that way. Delitse started to actually pressure forward, but he wasn't really landing anything. I mean, it looked good because it looked like he was being active, but he wasn't actually landing anything. Vittori was slipping a lot of them and then landing his own. Halfway through the round, though, he started to land more, stumbled Vittori a couple of times. Then it was really just back and forth, both guys landing big shots. And that really continued to the end of the fight. So to be honest, I kind of had absolutely no idea who won that. I really didn't. I would have, if I had to score it, it would have been a 29-29 draw. Like, that's how I had it if you were going to score it properly. Yeah, so I had no idea really. And I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised by the results on this one. It was 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27. 30-27 for Vittori. And again, a little bit weird on the cards, I gotta say, because I feel like you should have probably had a round for Delitse in there somewhere. But 29-28, totally fair for Vittori. Could have seen that. But yeah, I mean, really 29-28 either way, but a 30-27 on either side just seems wrong. Yeah. So yeah, again, just another weird instance of judging there. And again, it's not the last time we're gonna be talking about that. I mean, there's at least 2 more because we've got Usman and Edwards, and we've got Fiziev, I should say. Apparently, I thought it was Fiziev this whole time. Apparently, it's Fiziev. Who knew? But anyway, yeah, so we've got at least a couple more judges' cards that were weird, to say the least. As expected, oh yeah, this one now, Casey O'Neill and Jennifer Maya. And this is where my parlays fell apart because I gotta say, I don't know if I underestimated Jennifer Maya or if I overestimated Casey O'Neill on this one. Because I gotta say, I didn't think Maya really had much of a chance in this one. I really didn't. And I've been supporting Maya for the last few fights of hers. I actually even said that. I think I said that in the show last time. Uh that yeah, I've been picking Maya for her last few fights because and she's been winning because of that. I mean, like, I think she's really good, but I got to say Casey O'Neill looked pretty unbeatable in her other fights. So I don't know. I just didn't really think this was going to be all that close. But man, were we all wrong about that? As expected, O'Neill started to walk forward pressure immediately, walking her down, landing hard on Maya. Maya responding well, but definitely getting hit and was really just kind of getting picked apart at that point. Uh, As it went on, though, Maya started to counter pretty well, bust up her face a little bit. Maya shot in for a takedown, but was shut down. And as the round was closing, it actually seemed like Maya kind of may have stolen the round with her output, which, like I said, I was pretty surprised. I mean, we've seen O'Neill. I mean, she even broke or no, she was in second or something for the highest significant strike total in the division. So it's like it was like 200 and something, or yeah, it was like 250 strikes or something like that. So I definitely did not expect Maya to outpace her. So yeah, that was very surprising to see O'Neill get shut down like that. But yeah, the first round could have really gone either way, but I kind of went with Maya. Second round, O'Neill kept her pressure going. Maya was countering really well. Seemed like O'Neill just wasn't really putting it together and finding her rhythm. It was just kind of weird. It just didn't really look like her. She looked different and much, much better in the other fights. So it was a little weird. I don't know. Maybe something was going on that we don't know about. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's much of an indication that she will be back on the MMA, but it would be nice to see actually, because I'm a little curious as to what was happening there. Weird. Because every time O'Neill got a little closer, Maya would shut it down and then land a clean shot. She ended up getting in close, but then she was getting outclashed and even then just got pushed into the fence. O'Neill did have her moments, but this one, it was a pretty clear round for Maya on that one. Third round, Maya came in with some grappling, pushed O'Neill into the fence, then shut her down with combos, shots of her own. Really just a lot less output than I thought O'Neill was going to have, and way more output than I thought Maya was going to have. I mean, just completely flipped what I thought was going to happen. I think what pretty much everybody thought was going to happen going into this. I really did not expect this at all. And again, I respect Maya. I picked her in a few of her last fights. I picked her, and I just did not see this one coming at all. It just really no indication that this was going to happen at all. And this round, though, definitely O'Neill's, the third round, and seemed to have a fairly convincing edge in striking at that point. So, I mean, really could have been 29-28 either way. Yeah. So again, once again, when the judges were when the scorecards were being read out, just just so many weird numbers. It's the numbers. It's not the result. I agree that Maya won, but it's to see another 30-27. It was 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28 for Maya. I don't really see how you score that a 30-27. In fact, I would actually have said there's a better argument for 29-28 O'Neal than there is an argument for 30-27 for Maya. Eh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, I mean, pretty impressive for sure. Like, really, really impressive for Jennifer Maya to get that win. Because seemed like she was going to kind of be sliding down and, out of the UFC pretty soon. But that's just a really, really impressive win. There's no other way to say it. I mean, she clearly won the fight. And Casey O'Neill was looking like she was going to be the next huge, huge thing. And just shut that down. Wow. Then we had the last one before the co-main. That was Gunnar Nelson, Brian Barberena. I gotta say, definitely a lot more one-sided than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be at least a little bit closer. Maybe we see a second round. Maybe Nelson makes him work really hard, and then Nelson ends up getting a submission anyway. But I mean, this really was not really all that close. Slow start from both guys. Crowd finally starting to get into it for Nelson, which is a weird time to start cheering when there were so many other fights before that could have had a large cheering section. Making some noise for him. Good to see, though. Not really a whole lot of activity, though, until Nelson started to grapple, pushed Barberena into the fence, got the takedown with 2 minutes left in the round. Did not need it, though. Nelson really smothered him from there, clearly winning the round. I mean, he was definitely heading towards winning the round for sure. Looking for subs, landing elbows, and then 10 seconds left in the round, grabbed Brian's arm and made him tap for the win. So not really surprised at all by the result, but I thought Barberena was going to give up a little bit of a better fight than that, or put up a better fight than that, I should say, not give up. But yeah, I thought he was going to do a little bit better than that. Co-main, Fiziev finish. That's how I saw it, and he was actually close a couple of times within reason. But yeah, and this is another weird scorecard scenario. I mean, actually, really, I said that in almost every single fight on this entire card, that there were some weird judges cards the entire night, which is concerning. But I'm glad again that it did not ruin any of the results. And this, by the way, I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody at this point is, well, they're probably not watching anyway at this point. But if you are watching and you saw, I did actually have a full episode. It wasn't a full episode. It was half of an episode one time where I talked about what we could do about judging, how we could fix it. How not fix, you know what I mean? Not fix judging, but repair it to a point where it's actually working. And one of the things was have 5 judges, because it seems like, especially on these away cards where it's not in Vegas or anything, or even in the States, there's always 1 or 2 judges that don't seem to understand what they're doing, and they fuck up every single fight that they're a part of and have these bizarre results. And then we see split decisions, majority draws, backwards decisions that just completely don't make any sense whatsoever. If you have 5 judges, the fact that you have more of them means you're more likely to get the just result in the end. So you wouldn't see a lot of these weird split decisions if you had 5 people. That's just a statistical fact, really. So, that's what I think they should really be doing. But anyway, just a fun fact. Well, I don't even know what that was. Just a fun reference to something I talked about earlier that actually would have really helped specifically in this. Well, again, I don't think any of the results were affected, but this just goes to show you they had, I would say, 1 judge on almost every single fight that clearly was kind of judging things wrong according to the criteria. And that's fine to have 1 judge, but if you would have had a second one in any of those fights, you would have seen fights getting fucked up. You would have seen the results getting completely fucked up. But, you know, if you have 5, then you would need 3 judges to completely mess up uh the entire fight, which is pretty unlikely. The only time I've ever seen 3 judges completely fuck it up is yeah, is the Paddy Pimblett fight with Jared Gordon. That's just absurd. All 3 of them scoring it that way. Insane. But anyway, Fiziev, Gaethje. Incredible fight. It really was. And I mean, we knew that. I even said it. Write the bonuses for them now. You know they're going to get the fight bonus, and they did. Slow start from both of them though. At first, mostly just kicks, which of course is kind of what they're both known for. To be fair, as soon as they started throwing, though, you knew it was going to be crazy, just as expected. Fiziev definitely landing better, landing huge shots. The speed was just, I mean, holy shit. And that's exactly why I figured he was going to win this pretty easily. Yeah, I mean, he's just so much faster and so much more skilled, like technically skilled. Gaethje still landing here and there for sure, but not as much. Also threw out a takedown, but was shut down. Close round, but definitely Fiziev seemed to get the better of it for sure, I would say. Second round, was Fiziev was just a step ahead for the first bit, landing knees, combos, countering Gaethje, stumbling him a little bit. Then, as the round went on, though, Gaethje was starting to put to put it together, I should say, landing a lot more. Fiziev kind of just still landing here and there too, but Gaethje was starting to pull ahead because of his output there, and probably won the round. And of course, I think that's when he was starting to bleed a little bit, or well, quite a bit. Was, I think, the second round it started. So that, of course, lends it to Gaethje, of course, too. Third round, Fiziev opened big, landed a bomb, almost dropped Gaethje, wobbled him very bad. So seriously, already at that point, it was like, oh shit, we could still get the finish here, boys. We could still get the finish. Started to land some pretty big shots. As the round went on, though, again, seemed as though Fiziev was starting to get actually kind of banged up. Got his face busted open. Of course, we end up seeing the pictures, all the blood and the, everything else, contusions. Wild end to the fight. Gaethje started to land more. Fiziev was bleeding. Then Gaethje closed with a very late takedown, probably winning 29-28. I do really want to emphasize how actually close that was, because it seems like people are saying, oh, of course Gaethje won. It was a clear 29-28, blah blah blah. Like, I don't know about that, to be honest. I mean, I agree that that Gaethje won, but I don't really agree that it was one-sided at any point, or even that it was like a clear-cut convincing win for Gaethje. I don't think that at all. Yeah, just really, they're both really good, and we saw that, and we got treated to a nice show. That's how I feel about it. Incredible fight. And really, the weirdest part was 29-28, 29-28 Gaethje. Okay, that's fine. I agree. I had it 29-28 Gaethje. That's not a problem. The problem was 28-28. That was the problem, where it's like, how the fuck did you end up with a 10-8 round for either guy? That just doesn't make any sense. Like, that's just blatantly wrong. So yeah, that's just completely false. Like, it's just laughable to say that that was a 10-8. So yeah, really should have been a split, if we're being honest, because then the 10-8 was for Gaethje, which meant that if you bring it up by one, you put Fiziev's total up by one, which brings it to a 29-28 for Fiziev. So it would have actually been a split decision, which I'm totally okay with. Again, I don't have a problem with who won. But yeah, even closer really than it sounded of a majority decision. It was definitely a split for sure. Because 10-8's just absurd. Which again is what I'm saying. That was a judge that clearly had no idea what they were doing. I mean, they scored the first 2 rounds for Fiziev, and then they gave a 10-8 to Gaethje in the final round. Like, what? What? Just makes no sense. No sense. Absolutely no sense. And then we saw the welterweight championship of the world rematch, of course. Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards, and I had Edwards by TKO or KO, TKO, whatever, getting a finish into the, or actually, I just had a finish in general, to be honest, because I think he could have gotten a submission too, because he was close. He was close in that second fight there, the last fight in the first round there. He almost got a submission. But anyway, yeah, so I said Edwards finish on this one. Did not get the finish, but I truly don't think it was really all that close. You know, where the numbers weren't, I mean, the numbers were kind of close, but I kind of figured like, okay, again, point deduction, sure. But yeah, I kind of just felt like Edwards was just way ahead at every round. Not way ahead, but definitely ahead for most of the rounds. And we'll go through it because I think it needs to be said why it should have pretty clearly been Edwards at that point. First round started slow as expected. I mean, that's kind of the style that, well, specifically Usman heads towards, is a slower kind of one. Edwards first to land seemed to stumble Usman a couple of times. Leon landed a huge body kick, stumbled Usman a bit. Usman pushed him into the fence briefly, but Edwards shut it down. Pretty obvious. I mean, the first round, holy shit, was that an obvious round for Edwards? So clear 1-1 or 1-0 at that point. Second round, movement and speed of Edwards seemed to make Usman just a step behind. Started to get tagged by some of those combos. Usman then finally landed a big one, had Edwards a little bit stunned, forced him to start grappling. Edwards got back up, though, shut down the grappling, started to land bigger shots. Pretty close round, but I figured Usman probably tied it up. I mean, he did have the more significant lands in there, the significant combos in there. So I had it tied 1-1 at that point. Third round, for the first time in the fight, Usman finally landed a takedown, had him down for a bit, did get back up. Sadly, huge mistake by Edwards. Grabbed the fence very, very bad. Horrible fence grab there. And obviously did have the point taken away. And I gotta say, I'm not much for taking points away. I don't really like it, but in this case, I think he had to. I mean, that was, even as I don't even normally see the fence grabs, to be honest. I really don't. I'm like, usually I'm either typing, so I miss tiny fence grabs like that because it's like not even a half a second. It's usually less than half a second, and I just don't see it. Or it's like, it's covered up. We don't see the angle. We don't see the fence grab. So I don't usually see them. But this one, even I saw the fence grab, and it was bad. Like, it was like, oh, okay, that is a fence grab, and that is going to be a point taken away, because that is so blatant that you have to do a point taken away at that point. So no problem with that. I think that was completely fair. And then we actually saw a fourth foul from the fight, of the fight from Edwards there, and actually even almost a fifth foul from Edwards. I mean, I don't know what the hell was going on, but good God, he was just starting to get thrown off at that point by the fouls. Yeah, which really allowed Usman to clearly win the rest of the round. So that was an obvious 10-8. I think that was pretty clear. I don't really think you could have scored that any other way other than a 10-8. So at that point, I mean, I don't know what that is. What is that? That's 29-27. Yeah, 29-27 I had at that point. Fourth round started off slow again. Oh my nose. Started off slow again. Edwards definitely limiting his output here, allowing Usman to corner him along the fence. Edwards really just landing a lot of leg kicks at this point. Usman starting to pile on the output with striking and taking him down. Leon got back up, started to be slowing down quite a bit. And I actually, I mean, yeah, I guess I did. I mean, as I was watching it, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had Usman in the fourth round too, if I'm being honest. Yeah, kind of did. That's 39-36 at that point on my cards. So tough, tough. But yeah, fifth round, Leon then landed a head kick, wobbled him a bit, had a lot of people excited. Usman started to clinch up with him from there. Leon started to throw more out there though, picking Usman apart on the feet. Usman then pushed him into the fence once again, started to land a couple of takedowns, never really did anything with them. Usman not leaving anything to chance now, pushed Leon into the fence. And because all of the damage and output, I did give the round to Leon on that one. So, I mean, I actually thought it was pretty likely that it was going to be a draw because I think it kind of makes sense that it should have been a draw. Or I actually had it for a win for Usman. Yikes. But I mean, I have to remind you too that this is all because of the point deduction. Because if there's no point deduction, I mean, I think it's either a draw or Leon wins, I think, right? Oh yeah, no, it couldn't be a draw if there's no point deduction. Lol. Yeah, you'd have to be 49 or 48-47 either way on that one, at least on my cards. Yeah, but I mean, now that I mean, you have to remember that I write these things down while I'm watching them. And I think it was really the takedowns and the grappling of Usman that got me in the fourth round. But I gotta say, when you actually consider the damage again, it's kind of like, it was probably Edwards. It was probably Edwards winning that round, and maybe even the other round too, the second round, because I did say it was pretty close. So I don't know, but I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised by the scorecards on this one. It was 48-46, 48-46, and 47-47 for Edwards. And I gotta say, I was definitely surprised by that. I really was, especially when I heard 48-46, because I was like, okay, so that would be Usman losing 2 rounds. Like, okay, that seems fair. But that's not what would have happened then. How you get a 48-46 would be, it would have been a 49-46, but then of course you got the point taken away. That's how you would have had to have scored it, a 49-46. I mean, I don't think it's insane, but I didn't score it that way. I don't know. Just weird. Just very strange. But again, 47-47. Oh, that would have been a 48-47 for Edwards. I could have seen that for sure. So yeah, I was actually a little surprised that Edwards got the majority decision, if I'm being honest. Only because, like I said, only because of the point deduction. Because if it wasn't for the point deduction, I thought, yeah, you could see him winning 48-47. But because of that, I really thought we were going to see a draw. I really did. I thought we were going to see 47-47, 47-47, and I thought somebody was going to give it to Usman. So I thought it was going to be like a split draw, or actually, yeah, we could have even seen a split draw. I thought we were going to see a majority draw, though. That's what I thought. But hey, again, weird night. And I think also this could have definitely been influenced a little bit by the crowd. But hey, it really, really was close, which of course now I'm realizing is not what I said before I started this bit. But listen more so to what I say after I read the article, because before I'm just kind of thinking like, oh, what happened again? How do I feel about that? Like I'm just kind of trying to remember what I wrote down and trying to remember like, oh, this is what happened in the fight. But after it's like, oh, okay, I remember what happened in the fight now. Now we're through it. Now I can actually say like, okay. So maybe I shouldn't maybe I just shouldn't do that before reading the fights. Anyway, whatever. Nobody's watching anyway. It's fine. But yeah. Jake Hadley, KO of the night, submission of the night, Muhammad Mokaev, brawl of the night, Gaethje, Fiziev. Now I'm burping all over the place. What the fuck is happening to me? Happens every single stream. And then Leon Edwards, obviously the most valuable fighter. But yeah, I don't know. Just one more thing about that is it's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I really think Edwards deserved the win. Like, I definitely don't think Usman was robbed by any means. And yeah, it's really just the point deduction. That's what it keeps coming back to for me, because that's why I thought it was going to be a draw, is because of that. But hey, whatever. Whatever. I still think Leon deserves the win, so I'm not even going to go too deep into that, even though I already did. Anyway, we will take a short break, and then we will be talking about the actual picks for this week, and that is UFC San Antonio, Sandhagen, Vera. Great fight. Cannot wait. We will be back right after this.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we're back. UFC San Antonio. We'll get right on into it. The main card opens up with Chidi Njokuani, Albert Duraev. Oh my god, I don't even have my odds open. Yeah. Excited for this one, not because they're necessarily, well, actually, yeah, I guess Chidi's an up and coming prospect for sure. But it's the violence of this one that gets me interested, because almost, and I say almost because there's only one that didn't fit that. Almost all of their fights have ended in finishes in the UFC. Only one of their fights, and that's Duraev's fight against, I think it was Kopolov, was a finish. So I can pretty much guarantee you there is going to be a finish. And I got to say, I think it's pretty obvious who's going to get the win. I wouldn't even really say the odds should be all that close. They are close because I'm just looking at them now, but they really shouldn't be. Yeah, Duraev just gets hit quite a bit. I mean, he lost to Joaquin Buckley in the last one, got just completely outclassed in every single exchange really on the feet. I mean, it was just not even really all that close. And Chidi's bigger than that. He's got a longer reach than Buckley. He's got pretty solid stand-up skills. and he's got ridiculous power. So, yeah, I don't really think this is going to be all that close. I think we're going to be seeing a brutal finish for Chidi and Njokuani. And I got to say, he lost his last one against Gregory Rodriguez, but that was one of the worst cuts it probably is actually the worst cut I have ever seen. And if you've been paying attention to the UFC at all in the past year, then you probably know the cut I'm talking about, and you've probably seen it online. You might not have seen the fight, but you probably saw the cut on Gregory Rodriguez straight in the forehead. I mean, he was literally just drenched in his own blood. It was all over the octagon, all over both guys, Chidi and him, and truly disgusting. Like, you could actually see underneath multiple layers. Like, you could actually see the vein going down his forehead. Like, I don't know how many layers deep that would be before you get that kind of view at it, but it was disgusting. Truly the worst cut I have ever seen. Except for, oh, I don't know, actually. There have been a couple of cuts. Yeah, the one with Diaz was pretty bad too. But this one, I mean, fuck me. I honestly still can't believe that fight wasn't stopped because of that cut. So it's like, I mean, if you get a different doctor in there, that fight is over. So I mean, Chidi wins that fight because the fight's over. Or even a different ref, he sees that cut and he's like, this is done. Like, holy shit. And I mean, he even had a bunch of other chances to get a knockout. So it's like, I don't know how Rodriguez survived that, but yeah, Chidi easily, easily could have gotten a first round knockout there. And he had two first round knockouts in a row to start his UFC journey. So it's like, let's see, Duraev got finished by Joaquin Buckley in his last fight, and he's going against somebody who basically has 3 first round finishes in a row. Like, yeah, I'm picking Chidi and Njokuani on this one. That's a long-winded way of saying I will be putting him in quite a few of my bets. Njokuani minus 163. One hell of a price for this guy. Oh my goodness. That is one that yeah, that is pure profit right there. Minus 163 based on what I just said. I mean, what a steal. Over under 1.5 rounds, and it is dead even pretty much. Minus 115, minus 113 at the 1.5. I gotta say, I'm going under on this one. Yeah, I'm in Njokuani first round KO. That's how I see it. I mean, Duraev is a durable person. He's a pretty durable fighter, to be fair, but I don't know. I mean, Njokuani has just been absolutely demolishing these guys. So yeah, first round finish for Njokuani. That's what I'm seeing. Minus 113 for the under 1.5. That's how I'm going. Pure profit all day in this fight. I mean, wow. So yeah, that's exciting one to open up the card. But then way more exciting in terms of the actual matchup. Alex Perez, Manel Kape. Holy shit, this is going to be a good one. I love these flyweight fights. And there are 4. They're actually, yeah, 4. 1, 2, 3. 3. 3 pretty great flyweight matchups. And then, of course, the main event being the bantamweight matchup. But yeah, the little guys have got quite the matchups going on this fight, I gotta say, and this is one of them. And I gotta say, another one, not really all that close. Manel Kape, slight favorite, but should be a much bigger one. I don't really know why this is even remotely close. I mean, Kape, he's lost a couple, but his losses were to Pantoja and I didn't write it down. I know that one of them was Pantoja, and I can't remember one of the other one. But it's like the only times he's lost, it's to guys that are at the top. I think it was Dave. I think it was actually Figueiredo and Pantoja, and maybe there was somebody else in there that he lost to or something, but that's it. Like everybody else. Oh yeah. It was like a split decision to Nicolau. That was super close too. But this guy is so good, and he's just getting better. That was when he first got into the UFC. Like that was his first fight. Was like Pantoja, I think, was his first fight. I mean, holy shit. So yeah, I mean, this guy is insanely good, ridiculously good. He's super well rounded. Truly, I think he is top 5, and he's going to prove it this time. I don't think there's any way Perez wins this. I mean, he hasn't won since I think it's like 2019 or 2020 or something like that. Got smoked by Pantoja in his last fight. Lost his took a couple years off before that. Lost the fight before that. I can't remember who that was against, but he lost, I think it was in 2020. And then like I said, didn't win before that either. I truly don't even know when Alex Perez's last win was. So I mean, the fact that we're getting Manel Kopp at minus 186. Wow. Wow. That I mean, I'm running with that all the way to the bank. That is a clear pick. Manel Kopp minus 186. I mean, they're just throwing money at us now. This is crazy. Over under 2.5. I gotta say, I am definitely going with the under because I do think Manel Kopp is going to get a finish. And you know what? This brings me into why I'm going to be talking about the two prelims that I'm going to be talking about, which are both flyweights. If you paid attention to, well, I mean, it's really mostly a thing on the MMA hour. I got to be honest with that, but it is true. The flyweight unders really they've been cashing in pretty solid. I mean, they do really well, especially this year. A lot of flyweight unders, and this very well could be another one for sure. I really do think it is minus 172 for under 2.5. So yeah, I really do think there's going to be a finish as well. Minus 172, not the juiciest odds. So if you want to sit out of this flyweight under, I totally understand. But a plus 133 for the over 2.5, I'm not really sure if that's juicy enough to take advantage of. Because, like I said, this is kind of a mismatch to me. Manel Kopp should pretty easily get a finish here, but hey, I don't know. It's close. You never know. You never know, especially at flyweight, especially when his last fight was against Pantoja. I mean, Pantoja is going to smoke pretty much everybody. I said this early. I even said this before the break, actually, about Pantoja. Incredible. But yeah, but next matchup is where it gets very interesting. Andrea Lee, Macy Barber. Fairly significant favorite in Macy Barber, but I gotta say, I'm actually picking against Macy Barber on this one. I really am. And a lot of people are probably going to be surprised by that because she is a fairly significant favorite, but I honestly I haven't really been all that impressed at all by her in her last 3 fights. She just hasn't looked good, like, at all. And I'm a little surprised because I mean, I wasn't watching the UFC when she was first kind of rocketing up, in her first few fights, getting so many finishes. But ever since I started watching her, I don't know, like I'm just continuously unimpressed. Every time I'm like, okay, this is a better matchup for her. She's gonna do really well. She's gonna do really good. She's gonna just dominate this. This is her time. This is her time to dominate and really prove who she is. But then every time I'm left thinking, interesting. Because she lost. I mean, like, that's still one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. Macy Barber against Miranda Maverick. She clearly lost that fight. So that one should have been a loss. And in her last fight, it was was it Jessica I think, or somebody, it was somebody like that. I think it was Jessica I. should be dominating somebody like that, and honestly kind of was losing for a lot of it. I wasn't really impressed at all. I actually thought she might have lost when they read the cards out. Wasn't impressed at all. And Andrea Lee is bigger than that. And she is also very aggressive. So it's kind of like, I don't really see how Barber is going to win this. I I kind of don't, because Lee is bigger than her, which Barber already has a hard time. I mean, that's her style, is she grinds people against the fence, but she struggles when the person is bigger. Andrea Lee is a lot bigger. So already that shuts that idea down. And then when you go past that, it's kind of like, well, she's not going to get a finish, but Lee might. Lee is a finisher. She shreds people apart with clinch work and, like, well, submissions even. Everything she does. She's just 100% aggressive all the time, and I just don't think that Barber can stand up to that. So honestly, I'm going with the underdog on this one. I'm going with Andrea Lee, and I think she's got a pretty good shot. But I mean, besides the fact that I think that she's got a better shot at winning, it's a close women's fight. And we know, statistically speaking, we know what happens with that. Usually, I'm not actually, no, I wouldn't say usually the underdog wins, but it's about 50-50, because in all the men's fights, it's really like, it's about 60-40. The favorite's going to win 60% of the time. That's usually about what it is. But for the women, it's definitely less. It's like, it's probably about 50-50. It really is, because we see so many huge upsets on the women's side. And that's another thing, is it's not even like, okay, the close fights usually go, it's about 50-50, maybe even favoring the underdog sometimes. It's the big favorites losing. That happens a lot with the women. We just saw it with Juliana Miller and Veronica Hardy, and we see it at least once. Actually, yeah. Remember, oh my God, actually, I just realized that there was actually a huge stretch of weeks in a row. It might have even been months in a row, where there was at least one women's fight that had an upset every single card. And that included the cards where there was only one women's fight. There was always one women's fight that had an upset in it. I mean, it was so crazy to see. And that just doesn't happen for the men. I mean, how many men's upsets do we have that are like minus 300 losing? It doesn't really happen all that often. Minus 200 something, minus 100 something. Yeah, for sure. But not really in the men's as much. But in the women's, it happens all the time. So again, it's like, statistically speaking, you probably want to put some money on the underdog on this one, especially considering they're so close. But even that aside, I actually do think Andrea Lee kind of has a better chance at this. I don't know. And I'm a Macy Barber fan. Really, it may not sound like I'm a fan, but I actually am. I really do like Macy Barber quite a bit, but it's just not a good matchup. It's really just not a good matchup for her at all. So I would be worried for sure. And she is definitely not going in the parlay. I can tell you that. Over under. I mean, you got to go with the over. I mean, that's the one thing about women's. They're consistently over the 2.5. Very consistently over. Although, actually, I did just say Andrea Lee does get a lot of finishes. So, yeah. But Barber's pretty tough. I don't think she's ever been finished. So I would be pretty surprised if Andrea Lee got the finish. But, whatever. That's how I'm going with it. Lee by decision. And that really goes into actually the next. Oh yeah, never mind. Bet 99 has the fights flipped, but yeah. So we'll go with one of the next fight on the card after that, and then we'll talk about the other women's fight, because I actually think it's very, very similar, very, very similar, and you could bet it the same way. but we'll talk about the men first. Nate Landwehr, Austin Lingo. This one to me is really not even close. Landwehr, definitely not the cleanest fighter. I mean, it seems like he wants to be in an all-out brawl every single time because that's what he does. He gets absolutely destroyed by somebody and then he ends up winning somehow. I don't know how he does it, but he does it so much. It is crazy to see. I mean, the David Onama fight, if you want to see one of the wildest fights in UFC history, David Onama, Nate Landwehr. I mean, it was actually really in contention. It was like, well, I mean, was I going to choose it for fight of the year? No. But was it in my top 5 fights of the year in the UFC? Yeah. It was it was insane. Insanity to watch Nate Landwehr and Onama. But yeah, Onama is just far and away way better than Lingo, so it's like I don't really even see how Lingo has a chance to even win this fight. I mean, Landwehr is just going to overwhelm him the entire time and probably pretty easily get a well, I wouldn't say pretty easily get a finish. I think it would be a late finish if anything. Otherwise, I would say it's going to be a pretty dominant decision for Nate Landwehr, and I will be putting him in the parlays. And I actually didn't think I was ever going to say that because Landwehr isn't necessarily the most talented guy. Like I'm not saying I don't think he's ever going to get it. He's never going to get in the top 15, let's be honest. But he's not somebody that you want to be put up against because it is going to be a rough fight every single time. But yeah, so Landwehr, that's where I'm going. Minus 225. I will be putting him in the parlays. Plus 180 for Austin Lingo. I mean, not even close to being interesting to put money on. Over under 2.5. They're favoring the under on this one. As I said, it seems like it's more of a late finish kind of thing. So I would actually be leaning towards the over 2.5 plus 100. I mean, it's plus money. They're both in a lot of decisions. They're pretty tough. I don't know. You could easily see a decision. So plus 100 seems like the safer way to go. You'll win in the long run. Plus 100. Makes sense. Then we have the co-main, and this is the one I was just talking about, referencing when we were talking about Andrea Lee and Macy Barber. It's very, very close because this is kind of like Barber should win, Holm should win, but will she? And I honestly don't know. And I really have been going back and forth on this one. Maybe, I mean, on paper, a lot of people are probably thinking, why would you be going back and forth on this? It seems like a pretty clear, like Holm is a pretty clear choice. But even if you look at their last couple of matchups, Holm lost to Ketlin Vieira. I mean, lost. I think she won, but she lost technically. And Kunitskaya beat Ketlin Vieira. So already it's like, well, hold on a sec. This is a lot closer than people think, isn't it? And it comes down to, is Holly Holm as good as she was 3-4 years ago? Can she hold up against somebody like Kunitskaya that's still in her prime? Or maybe not in her prime, but just on the other side of it, maybe. Can she hold up with that? I don't know. And that's why I keep going back and forth on this. And it's also why I won't be putting this in the parlay because I truly don't know who's going to be taking this win. And who knows, maybe I have it flipped. Maybe Barber is going to win and Kunitskaya is going to win. Whereas I am picking Lee and Holly Holm. That's who I'm going with. I am going with Holly Holm, but only because I think this style favors Holly a lot more. She's used to going against, because Santos is more of a striker than a grappler. So, I mean, she's pretty well-rounded for sure, but, I just think this kinda style does slightly favor Holm. So I think she has a slight edge. It's so close. I mean, this one really, really is very, very close. I don't know. Like I said, I'm going with Holly Holm, but by decision, of course, obviously. But I wouldn't fault you for picking Kunitskaya. Oh, by the way, I should. Why am I even saying Kunitskaya? Her name's Santos, Yana Santos. But yeah, online it still says Kunitskaya. Horrible. They really should pay attention a lot more. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, it is very close. So, but like the reason why I was going back to Barber and Lee though, is it's the exact same principle. Really, is that it's a very close fight. So statistically speaking, you should actually be betting on Santos or Kunitskaya. You really should be putting the money on that because the return is a lot better and it's really a 50-50 fight. So the odds should actually be a lot closer is what I'm saying. And if you keep betting on those, you will win over the long run. That's just a mathematical fact. That's why people bet like that. That's why people say you just take the best looking odds because in the long run, that's what pays off. And this is one of those scenarios. So you could definitely go underdog on both of them. So you could go Andrea Lee and then also pick Kunitskaya slash Santos. But for me, that's not really how I tend to bet. I mean, you could definitely do that. And again, there's a huge argument there, especially online in the betting sphere. There's an argument for both sides. You could really go either way. I don't have a problem with people betting either way or even doing both because I actually do both sometimes. I think, okay, this one I'm really not sure about, so I will actually go with the underdog because statistically that's better. And that's why I'm going with Lee. But I gotta say, I kind of think Holm has the better shot on this one. So I will be picking Holly Holm at minus 250, but again, no parlay, and it's tough. Man, I don't know. Like I said, I keep going back and forth. But anyway, I've landed on Holly Holm, so that's my pick. The over under 2.5, of course, heavily favoring the over. Yeah, there's no way there's going to be a finish in this one. I'm sorry. Neither one of these girls gets finishes with it. This is decision territory all day long. Minus 300. Throw that in the parlay. How about that? Then we've got the main event, the one that everybody's looking forward to. Chito Vera and Corey Sandhagen. Gotta say, this was one of the easiest picks. I did watch some footage, but honestly, I didn't really need to. I've seen so much of both of these guys. I know exactly how they're going to fight. I mean, Vera, he just relies on landing a couple of huge shots throughout the round. He wants to get a stumble, he wants to get a knockdown, he wants to do something like that, and then he wins the round based on that. That's what he does. Or he gets a knockout. That's what he does. He doesn't fight any other way. That's the only thing he knows how to do. And Sandhagen does the exact opposite of that. He's not looking really for a knockout. I mean, he gets them, but he's not searching for them. He's more of that championship level fighter where he's going to just win a decision. He's going to grapple you. He's going to outstrike you. He's going to do everything he has to do to win a decision. And he's also very, very smart in terms of fight IQ. And yeah, so I think he's going to win pretty convincingly in a decision. I don't really think it's going to be all that close. I really don't. And he's got 5 rounds to work with. Like, yeah, Vera, he's probably going to win 1 round, maybe 2. But I do think this is going to be a pretty convincing decision win for Corey Sandhagen because it's just like, it's just not a good style matchup for Chito at all. And I mean, even look at what happened with Piotr Jan. If Jan I mean, if Jan didn't finish Sandhagen, Chito Vera's not going to finish Sandhagen because he's just, even based on what we saw against Marab, Jan is still probably the best boxer in the division. I mean, best striker? No. I mean, O'Malley's clearly the best striker, but boxer though, yeah. So I mean, and it's like the striking level is just different. I mean, Jan would beat Vera probably 10 times out of 10, whereas Vera and Sandhagen was actually that was a fairly interesting close fight. Jan didn't run away with that fight by any means. I think it was ended up being like 3 rounds to 2. I had it, Jan and Sandhagen, so it was pretty close. I don't know. So yeah, I just think Sandhagen is a lot more well-rounded and championship level. That's all. So I think it's a pretty easy pick, -172. Sandhagen, going with that. And I would put that in a parlay. The over-under is over 4.5 because, like I said, neither one of them is likely to get a finish here. I mean, Vera, that's kind of his only chance at winning this is with a finish, but I don't think he's going to get it. So, yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards the over on this one. -163, over 4.5. But I will say there is definitely a way to bet this. Because, like I said, Chito's real only chance of winning this is by knockout. So, if you want to put money on Vera by knockout just to offset, the bets if Sandhagen loses, you could definitely do that. That might be a good idea because you'd probably be getting plus 250 or plus 300 for a Vera knockout. So if he gets it, makes up for the losses of picking Sandhagen. But again, I don't think that's necessary. I do think Sandhagen's going to win this fairly convincingly. And that's it for the main card. Then, as I mentioned, 2 prelims I'm going to talk about, and it's all because of these flyweight unders, because I truly believe that we're going to see a flyweight under in both of these matchups. And also, not only that, I just love the flyweights. I love these flyweights. They're so entertaining and they're so good. And these 2 matchups are no exception. I'm very excited for these matchups. First, you got Vinicius Salvador and Victor Altamirano. Oh my God, I can't. This one is super exciting because Salvador is probably, I think he has to be. He's the biggest flyweight I've ever seen. Like, you look at him and you're like, okay, so you're probably bantamweight, maybe a featherweight. This guy's huge, like just outrageously big for a flyweight. I think it's something like 12 knockouts. Unheard of for a flyweight. Had one of the best, probably the best flyweight performance I've ever seen on the Contender Series. I mean, he absolutely demolished Shannon Ross. And I actually thought Shannon Ross was okay. Like, he wasn't really that bad, but my God, every single time Salvador landed, Shannon Ross just fell to the ground like a sack of bricks. It was like he was just throwing haymakers in there, landing almost every single one of them. I mean, what a just unbelievable striker. I cannot wait to watch Salvador. And it made me so sad when they canceled his fight. I think it was like a few weeks ago or a month ago. He had a canceled fight. So I'm so excited to see him back this time. Oh my goodness. And then on the other side, Altamirano hasn't really been all that successful. He hasn't seemed too bad. Like, I still think he's fairly talented, but yeah, I do think he's going to get finished here. I think it's going to be insane. I cannot wait to watch it. I mean, Vinicius Salvador really is one of those guys you want to see. You do not want to miss this guy. -117 right now. So it very close on the cards, but I mean, come on. the smart money very clearly on Salvador minus 117. We could really clean up with this one because I don't think a lot of people know how good this guy actually is. So minus 117. What a steal. What a steal on this guy. I thought it was going to be a lot more one-sided. I really did. It is over under 1.5 though. Oh my god, and they're favoring the over. Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. They're favoring the over minus 186. I totally understand, but plus 142 for under 1.5. And this guy has, I think, 13 knockouts now because of the last knockout he got. I mean, not crazy. I mean, just put even just sprinkle a little bit on it. You don't have to go crazy with it. But plus 142, and this guy has that many finishes at flyweight. Why not? Why not just take that chance? Just a little bit, just $5-10, whatever. Just to, add it on, tack it on. If you know you're going to make money anyway on the other matchups, just sprinkle a little bit on here and you might win even more. That's all. But yeah, wow. Cannot wait for that fight. That's a good one. The next one, also incredible fight at flyweight. CJ Vergara, Daniel Da Silva, or on Bet99, he's known as Daniel Lacerda, which I think is absurd because that's not his name, but whatever. They do this a lot. They just don't change people's names. Like I said, Veronica Hardy was still Macedo. There was the other one earlier today that was the wrong name. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Moving on. CJ Vergara, Daniel. I'm just saying that so that you know who I'm talking about. CJ Vergara, Daniel Da Silva. Yeah, there's going to be a finish in this one too. I would say pretty confidently. And this is a weird one. It really is because Vergara. I mean, he's clearly going to win. He's insanely good, but Daniel Da Silva keeps getting just thrown in the wrong situation. I mean, he got finished in his last two within like the first couple minutes, but I mean, every time he fights, I'm like, wow, this guy really looks good. Like he's a really slick fighter. He's super skilled. Truly, I actually really do think Daniel Da Silva is very, very good. But he just keeps getting thrown in there against these absolute monsters. And in one of the fights, I actually thought Da Silva was going to win, and he just got caught. It was like he didn't even see it coming, and he was winning the fight, and then he got caught and just slept. And the ref stopped it, I think, a little prematurely, but it was like, what the fuck? Like, he's just one of those guys that just never catches a break, And this is, I hate to say it, but this is probably the end. This is probably the end for Daniel Da Silva on this one because Vergara, I can pretty much guarantee you, is going to get a finish. I mean, he had a shit ton of finishes outside of the UFC. And the only reason he hasn't got one in the UFC is because of the people he's been fighting. And listen to this list: Ode Osborne, Clayson Rodriguez, and Tatsuro Taira. Those are the three guys he's fought. All of them, honestly, could easily be in the top 15. Taira, for sure, got finished him by him submission. Like, yeah, okay. Clayson Rodriguez should I think he actually did make it to the top 15 now. And he won in a split decision. Vergara won in a split decision over Clayson Rodriguez. And Ode Osborne, who we know, top 20 material for sure. So it's like, those are his three fights. And now he's going against somebody that got finished in the first round twice in a row. This is not going to be close. I hate to say it. I really do actually like Daniel Da Silva. I think he's great, but no, this is not going to go well for him. Vergara, finish. That's how I'm going. Minus 250 Vergara. Putting that in the parlay for sure. And the over-under is at 1.5 as well. So clearly, I think at least Bet99 is wising up on these flyweight unders for sure, because they're favoring the under on this one. Under 1.5 rounds, minus 189. I got to say, I kind of agree with that. I probably would be going for minus 189 for the under. But, it is flyweight. Vergara's in a lot of decisions. Maybe Da Silva starts to put it together this fight, and he he lasts into the second or third round, maybe a decision. You never know. I still don't think he's going to win by any means. That's for sure. But could make a decision. Yeah, could make a decision. So maybe, just maybe, plus 145 for the over 1.5. Not the craziest idea. Like I said, statistically speaking, it would be better to go for the plus money. I mean, like I said, over the long run, if you go with those picks, you will make money because it's statistically speaking the best way to do that. But anyway, if you want to pick winners, though, I would say I'd be leaning towards the under. But yeah, and that's it. That is it for the picks. Now I will quickly go through my parlays. And I got to say, pretty much, yeah, actually, all of these fights are actually very close. There is nothing, not even one single fight that is in the minus 300 range right now. I just looked through the whole card. Nothing over minus 300. So really, this is the ideal card for the parlays because the odds are just way lower than normal. And that, I mean, we know that happens with pay-per-views specifically. I mean, people bet up parlays, but also they put a lot of one-sided matchups on parlays. I mean, on pay-per-views, what am I saying? On pay-per-views, they do that. I mean, Mokaev minus 900, Jack Shore minus 500. There's always at least 4 or 5 on pay-per-views that you can just string together. You're probably going to win it almost every single time. That's what I do. And I do win almost every single time for that. And then you go back to the normal card, and then you see odds like this that are very close because people aren't necessarily betting them up as much, but they also don't know as much about the fighters and also closer matchups in general. So yeah, lots of really close matchups for this one, but still some definite picks for parlays. And let's see. I don't like putting parlays together with people making their debut. I've been burned with that a few times even in the last month, I've been burned with that a couple times. So I won't be putting Salvador in my parlay, even though I do think he's got a very, very good chance of winning this. Vergara minus 250. I think that's a pretty clear parlay choice. So that's one. The next few ones are pretty close. Tucker Lutz, I do think is did I go with Lutz or Pineda? I can't even say that then. Chidi and Njokuani, I think he's pretty clearly going to win this one. So I would put him in parlays. Maybe not all of them. Manel Kopp, yeah, putting him in the parlays. That's 3 minus 186. These are incredible odds for this. Minus 225. That's either the third or fourth leg, depending on what you're doing. Landwehr minus 225. That's the third or fourth pick there. And Sandhagen. I got to go with Sandhagen. Throw him in on the parlays as well. Because, Holm, I don't know. I'm just not convinced anymore. Like this will probably be the last time that I pick Holm. And I can already tell that because this could be her last fight. I mean, if she wins, she's still maybe in a title conversation, but if she loses, that's it. There's no reason for her to be around. So this would actually be her last fight. Either way, this is probably the last time I'm picking Holly Holm. So minus 250. I don't think I'm putting her in a parlay for that. There's no way. And Barber, I think she's probably going to lose, so I'm not doing that either. Yeah. So yeah, what does that make? Sandhagen, Landwehr, Cap, Njokuani, possibly. And then what was the last one? We had one more. Vergara, minus 250. And that's it. Oh, my nose. Fuck. And yeah, that is it for the parlays. Again, lots of very close betting lines this week, which means lots of money to be made. I'm excited. The flyweights are going to be bringing it. The main event looks incredible. Got a couple of solid ladies fights. especially the one with Macy Barber and Andrea Lee. I actually do think, even no matter who wins, I actually do think that's a very intriguing fight because they are kind of in the middle of the rankings. So really, whoever wins that, you could see them get back up there and start to make a title run eventually. But yeah. Oh yeah, and then of course there is actually another women's fight, Haley Cowan, Tamiris Vidal. That's a decent fight too. But anyway, that is it for me. Area 51 has got you covered for all the other sports if you want to check the rest of them out. I've got all the MMA for them, of course. All my socials are below. That's UFC. What am I? All of my socials are below. That's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, I think is on there too. That's where I post all my bonuses. I post them on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah. Oh, and then next week. Oh my goodness, it's a week off. We got a week off next week. No card. I mean, we'll still be back to do this to talk about this card, of course. But yeah, no card next Saturday. And then the week after that is the pay-per-view in Miami. Cannot wait for that. That would be Burns and Masvidal. Oh yeah, and I forgot about Pineda and Izzy. My goodness. And that's the other fight. My goodness. That is one hell of a card. It really is. Oh, and we got Raul Rosas Jr. back again, opening up the prelims. Holy shit. Can't wait for that. What a fucking guy. And just insane. Insanely talented. Cannot wait for that. I don't know any other fights off the top of my head. That was literally just all off the top of my head. I don't remember who else is going to be there, but I remember the card looks pretty solid. But yeah, that is it for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.